Those additional funds
Dodge Ram?
are funds
Used to be, yeah. That's $10,000.
Yeah, but what might happen, I don't know.
Let's talk about being back.
Doesn't look as if
No, yeah, it was just security stuff. With the security plan and the security system and stuff, just stuff that I've been working on. No, well, good, thanks for that's good. I appreciate you asking, actually. No, all good. I just gave a little update. The new system and the schools that are getting on. But I'd like to show you what that can do as well, actually, at some point.
Chair's falling, the table's falling.
We are getting the elementaries on board pretty good.
but
Tonight our scans were on there. Kind of freaked me out. Because we just have our scans there when it's on the board.
Let's see.
Yeah, no doubt.
And then we have
You can keep it.
to, 5, I don't want it. Another round board.
so you could get
Ask Kim something, but she's not done
Kim,
yet.
she's, yeah.
No, not Kim, Kim.
Kim? I haven't seen her back yet.
Uh-oh. Bruce wants to know that.
Cause the tablecloth fell down from the Judy. Awesome. Well, thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
there's a feature where you can export your budget
When's this presentation? When's this presentation?
Yeah.
Right here, up front.
Duct tape.
But plus, when you have to do these budgets,
How many slides are there over there? 72? 72.
But Bruce started 5. He added 5 slides for this Judy.
Julie's get your hair done prior to the school committee meetings? Where would you? Julie, get your hair done prior to school committee meetings?
Only when she finds money in a wallet that her husband gave her. She's like,
That's awesome. Good for you. Good for you.
I know you don't. That's why I'm telling you.
Oh, that will be all picked up.
Tomorrow she'll come in with one nail.
There we go. That didn't last. How about mittens? Just go to some mittens. Kids in school.
Yes. Only the dinosaur. He was like a duck. It was like a drug tag. We were like,
He's gotta get home for more.
I saw it. I feel like I saw it.
When did you come back?
Yeah, you're
Did you fly direct from Florida? Direct flight? Oh, yeah, yeah. No, you're right. No.
Everybody all set? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our November monthly meeting. At this time, I'd like to get a vote to seal the minutes in executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And there were no votes taken in executive session. At this time, I have the list for public comment, and we have one person, Darlene Netko. If you'd like to come up.
Good evening. I am commenting on numbers 2 and 3 on the agenda. First, number 2, Warwick's assessment data. One thing I want to point out is that as we start this new school year, in addition to providing the instruction students need, we should also provide the instruction students need to be able to take a test. Taking a test is a skill. That's why organizations like Stanley Kaplan make a lot of money. And we did have an SAT prep course as an elective in our high schools, but the previous administration, while paying lip service to achievement, decided to cut it. And I am hoping that this administration puts it back, because even though the SATs are biased and should not be used as a state test, the sad reality is that Rhode Island has decided to use the SAT as a state test. And our students could benefit from the practice that an SAT prep course would give them in both math and the verbal skills. So, as I said, I'm hoping it gets back into the program of study where it had been for about 30 years. There was no reason to cut it. And we also need to provide practice for the Rycast test for the rest of the students, because taking a test is a skill, and it isn't fair to put a test in front of students and they've never seen what that kind of test looks like, because it's not just testing what they know or what they've learned, but it's testing how to take a test, which is sad, but it's the truth. So I'm hoping that SAT prep goes back into the high school where it belongs, where it's free and available for students to take during their school day. So if they work, they aren't deprived of being able to take it. And if their family has no money, they aren't deprived of being able to take it. It's too bad that only the wealthy can take these practice tests. So it's time for us to put it back in. And it's time for us to provide practice materials for the Rycast. Secondly, data walls. It's very nice that data's up on the walls. However, I know one school, Greenwood, has some data up on the walls, and the teachers have never been given the data. At Greenwood, teachers tell me they have not received the scores. And I think that's terrible. If you want teachers to use data to inform their instruction, you need to turn the scores over to them. Finally, I see on the agenda there's some kind of recognition for Mr. Cornell and Ms. Cobden for their work at 9/11 ceremonies, so congratulations and well-deserved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And a public comment. On to recommended actions, approval of minutes of public sessions, October 12th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. October 19th, 2021. Hold on a minute, please. You need to put a mask on if you're going to take the
Put a mask
microphone.
on. There's several people in the hallway, adults, that work in this school that don't have masks on.
But it's,
And I
you
have an
have to put a
exemption.
mask on.
There's no law. There's no law. There's no law.
This road's been traveled many, many times.
And I thought if we stand in front of the mic, we take our masks off anyway.
Well, other people use that microphone, that's the point.
Yeah.
That's why we need you to have a mask on.
Yeah, I'm not wearing a mask.
Mr. Hennius,
I'd just reconvene the meeting, stop the meeting right now, recess it, call the police, and come back.
yeah,
Motion to recess.
yeah.
Take a motion to recess.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye.
I just don't want to hear what I have to say, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Gladly.
Don't need to be worn by children in school. It makes them more sick. Whether you want to hear it or not, it's too bad. I'm going to say it anyway. I I've had to homeschool my kids because you guys don't listen to the public. The public that voted you in. Voted you in. But guess what? Next year, you guys are up for your job. And I will make sure that you guys don't have a job because you haven't been listening to the public. So I don't know.
Are they coming?
Hopefully.
Do we wait for the cops to come? Okay. Okay. We're the 19th? Okay. Okay, back to the minutes of public sessions. Can I have a vote for approval of October 9th?
Do we need a vote to go back into open session?
Oh, make a motion to go back into open session?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Back to October 19th, 2021, approval of minutes of public session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. November 2nd, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. November 16th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of transfers, November 16th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now we have the announcements, personnel as presented. Mrs. Ruggieri.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the school committee. Tonight we have,
Excuse me, I have a question. I want to know where it says that we're forced to wear masks after school hours.
It's a rule in the school, sir.
Policy.
Yeah, but
Motion to recess again.
it's not a session.
Let me answer this. Let me
I
answer
had a
this.
meeting with the governor.
Sir.
I just left it, actually. And he didn't have on a mask in Washington. He didn't have a mask on when I was at the meeting. I've been having meetings with the governor weekly. Weekly, no mask, nothing. So what makes him better than us? I just want to know. These children gotta suffer wear masks 8 hours a day in school, get in trouble if they take it off during lunch. The only time they can take it off is when they're eating. So can someone explain to me how it's fair for the governor? I mean, the governor can take it off, but these children can't. I'm waiting for an answer. I'd be greatly appreciated.
If it's okay with Andrew, if it's okay with Andrew, I'll say something.
Please.
Because the science, I mean, 92% of the people in the
So-
state around are vaccinated, so how does this work?
Sir, you're interrupting the meeting. There is, listen to me. Listen to me. There there is a public,
I have the right to speak.
no, you don't.
Yes, I do. This is a public meeting.
Motion to recess.
It's open to the public.
Exactly, I'm public, right?
It's not your meeting.
Motion to recess.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There you go. Go ahead. Back off.
fucking unbelievable. The police officer here? They got him in the hallway. My birth mother's in Florida going, she's like, what's going on? Are you guys all right? Because she watches all my meetings from Clearwater.
All right, let's roll it so we can go.
We all here? Okay, can I have a motion to start the meeting again, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we left off at announcements of personnel as presented. Mrs. Ruggieri.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the school committee. Tonight I have some retirements for you to vote on. First, we have Kathy Nab Tiperneni, the school nurse teacher at Cedar Hill with 28 years of service. Mary Manson, the head custodian at Tollgate with 33 years of service. Susan Molak, teacher assistant at Cedar Hill with 23 years of service. Susan Bolia, elementary secretary at Greenwood Elementary with 22 years of service. And Rosemary O'Neill Rock, teacher assistant at Cedar Hill with 20 years of service. I wish them well and thank them for their service to the students of Warwick. And I just need a vote for this, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you. Tonight I have one resignation, David Planka, an art teacher at Pilgrim. I do need a vote for that as well.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And one more for a vote. We have one unrestricted leave of absence for the month of December. Jennifer French, the Secretary of Construction and Capital Projects.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And some courtesy announcements. I'd like to welcome some new people to the district. We have Stephanie Ziala, a school nurse teacher for 1 year only at the Tollgate Complex. Ashley Duggan, a school nurse teacher for 1 year only at Scott Elementary. Melanie Brunel, an art teacher at Pilgrim. Mike DeSano, a night custodian at Hoxie. Heather Oliveira, a teacher assistant at Hoxie. Deborah Smith, a teacher assistant at Windman. And Anna Marie Pislowski, a night custodian at Warwick Neck. I'd like to welcome them all to the district. And if we're available if they need anything.
Is any of you here?
I don't see anyone.
Okay, well, welcome.
And finally, the coaches as presented in your executive section packet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ruggieri. Next is the recognition. The first item is the heroic and quick response for park teacher assistants Charlene Ritchie and Kathy Cookson. Okay. They're arguing.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the school committee, and invited guests. I want to thank everyone for attending tonight. We have a very special award to give out tonight. We have two heroes among us. I think John knows that his mom is a hero, but she is now a Warwick hero as well. We had an incident at Park Elementary School a couple of weeks ago in the cafeteria, and due to the heroism of these two young ladies, a child's life was actually saved. And I know they said they were being a mom and that they would have done it, any of us would have done it, but they jumped into action. So Charlene Ritchie and Kathy Cookson were in the cafeteria at Park Elementary when Charlene noticed that a student didn't look well. So she went over to him and she asked him if he was okay, and he shook his head no, but he couldn't speak. So Kathy, who was a little bit closer to the student, went over and asked him if he was okay, and he shook his head no again. So at that time, she performed the Heimlich maneuver, and a piece of chicken nugget was dislodged from his throat. And she asked him at that time, "Are you okay now?" And he still shook his head no again. So she performed the Heimlich one more time, where a larger piece of chicken popped out, and he could finally breathe. So the custodian, the principal, the nurse, mom was notified, and the student is doing well. But again, thanks to these brave ladies who just jumped right in to save a student that wasn't even their own, is true heroism. So I would like to call up Charlene Ritchie and Kathy Cookson. don't know if I got the story 100% right, but. So on behalf of the Warwick School Department and the Elementary
thank you so
Department,
much.
we want to thank both of
Oh,
you for your
thank you.
heroism.
Thank you. We
and
didn't
I'm
expect
gonna
that.
Take some pictures here. Whoop. Wait, hang on, I'll get in the middle. How's that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much. What a surprise. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your heroic measures for our kids. Very proud of you. But you got the chicken nugget out, that's what matters.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the school committee. It's my pleasure to extend congratulations to two school committee members. Recently, they've been recognized by the Rhode Island House of Representatives. I have two citations for Miss Judith Cobden and Mr. Nathan Cornell. Please stand up. The Rhode Island House of Representatives hereby offers its sincerest congratulations to Ms. Judith Cobden and Mr. Nathan Cornell in recognition for your participation in the 20th anniversary memorial service honoring Rhode Islanders who made the ultimate sacrifice on September 11th, 2001. You highlight the values of community service and brotherly love, and these citations are signed by Camille Vela-Wilkinson, Representative Joseph J. Solomon Jr., and the Speaker of the House, Joseph Sakachi. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, on to the next item, donation announcement. We have an anonymous donation of $400 for the Cedar Hill Library. It's always nice. Thank you to Anonymous. And on to new business. Discussion update, high school AP scores. Dr. Schultz.
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to ask if we could display the data. Oh, it just will take just a second, but I think that might be a good idea because we do have a lot of slides coming up. Mm-hmm. We should be okay. Yes, so just a quick amendment to some data that I discussed at the last meeting about Tollgate's AP scores. I just wanted to make a quick amendment to the data. It was not reported that 5% of our students at Tollgate received a score of 5, which is the highest score that students can achieve on the AP test. So I just wanted to let everybody know that Tollgate did have 5% of their students achieving a score of 5, with a total of 45% of students meeting where they needed to be for the AP score. So I just wanted to make that public knowledge. Thank you. All right. And then I think you want me to move on to agenda item number 2? It kind of flows into it. Yeah? Okay, great.
That's one we should probably sit down to look at the data.
Okay, that sounds great.
I'm going to go anyways.
Okay, we have to go into the audience now.
All right, and so as everyone's taking their seats, I just wanted to go over a few things. I'm going to be asking my colleague, I wanted to say Professor Cousineau, but sure, we'll go with that. Okay, we're going to be talking about some important data this evening. And it's a common theme that we're going to be seeing this year. We thought it would be very important to go over data and make baseline comparisons from now until the end of the school year just to see how our students are doing. And so if we look at the overall scores that everyone did for ELA scores across the district, you can see that about 38% of our students in 2018-19 were at the proficiency level for English language arts. And then in comparison, we were at about 30% last year. So we did drop about 8%. This is very close to where we were with the state average as well. However, the Commissioner of Education has told us that we had to be very careful when we compare scores from 2018 to 2020, simply because so many less students took the test. We had over 600 students, a decrease in 600 students take the test from the first year to the last year, and so that really makes it hard to compare the two numbers. And if we move to the next slide, you can see something similar with the math scores. In 2018, we started with 26.5% of our students being at the proficient level, and then in 2020-2021, we dropped to 14.5%, which is along with what the state saw as well. And again, it's hard to compare the two numbers because over 700 students did not take the test when you compare numbers from 2018 to 2020. And now I will turn the microphone over to Professor Cousineau.
Thank you, Dr. Schultz. The next slide represents our 13 elementary schools, and this is the Rycast scores from 2018-19 to last year. I tried to break it down where you could see the percentage in ELA from what they were to what they were in 18-19 to 2019-20. We had a couple of bright spots you'll see on the next slide as well. But overall, when I averaged it all out, ELA decreased approximately 5%. And then on the next slide, I did the same thing for math. And as we know statewide, that math is more of a problematic area for us. Our elementary schools went down approximately at 11%. But rather than focus on the negative, I'd like to go to the following slide where we can focus on our bright spots. Park Elementary School had the second highest growth score in the state on the math for the Rycast test, so whoop whoop to Park Elementary. I might be sitting next to the former principal of Park Elementary. Greenwood had a very high growth score. We don't look at these numbers in isolation. These are snippets in time, so we kind of look at this data in many different facets, and they had a very high growth score, well above the state average, along with Sherman School and Scott School, and Scott School is commended for having the highest achievement score in math in the district, above the state average, which is great news for us because, again, math is one of our weaker areas. The Rycast for ELA, Park School had the highest growth score in the district, well above the state average, as well as other schools like Wyman, Howman, Warwick Neck, and Scott. Warwick Neck and Cedar Hill are commended for having the highest achievement scores in the ELA in the district as well, again, above the state average. So again, while we know we have some work to do, we do have to celebrate our bright spots, and we do commend those principals and those students for doing a nice job in those areas, and we look forward to seeing what the scores will look like this year.
All right, thank you. And now I'll move on to the middle school scores. And so for Rycast, which is again the state assessment in grades 6 through 8, we did see a decrease overall in our scores. I just want everyone to know that that is it was typical for the entire state. It's not just Warwick. And so we did have a decrease at veterans of about 13% for ELA, again about 13% for math. Windman went down about 10%, and math went down 17.5%. When we compare that to the state, you can see that the state also went down for middle schools about 5.5% and 9% for math. And so it's something that the commissioner has asked us to call the new baseline. It's not, we're not being judgmental by any means. COVID hit everybody really hard. And in the cities that were hardest hit with COVID, that's where we saw the biggest impact. And so we did see that here in Warwick. And so we can only move on up from here. And we have a lot of plans in place to make that happen. If we look at the next score, it also talks about how we did at the high school, the SAT scores. And so we did drop, not as much as we did on the Rycast, but we went down about 7% and 6% respectively for Pilgrim, and then Tollgate 5% and 1%. And then this is right along with the state. We went down 2.5% in ELA and down 5% for math. And so one way to mitigate this, if we go to the next slide, is that we're going to be offering before or after school learning academies at every level. So we have asked teachers to put in their names to be teachers if they want to teach before, after school, whatever really works for their schedule. We're going to be asking students to sign up for this as well. We're starting this next month, and teachers will be tutoring twice a week for 1 hour either before or after school on math and English language arts. And we're going to start with a 4-week program as a trial run and see how it goes. I know that it will have a positive impact on our scores, and we're going to be using data to drive everything that we do this year. Other steps that we're taking are each school has created data walls, which we'll be showing next. Very exciting, and so it's something that is actionable. A lot of people have chosen things like the Rycast scores, the iReady scores, which is where the students take a diagnostic to show where they are with either math or English language arts, and it can show their growth throughout the school year. The state scores have been shared with principals. It's also been shared with teachers around the district, along with instructions on how to really dig into the data. And parents are encouraged to ask their principals, their teachers, how their students did and how they can also access the public data that's available. We also have many teachers taking letters training. It is a very comprehensive training. It's going to be taking place over the next 3 years, and it is aligned with the science of reading, which will also help our students really grow in the area of ELA or English language arts. In addition, you'll hear me speaking about some new English language arts materials that are going to be purchased at the elementary level this year. And we have already purchased new math and English language arts materials at the secondary levels, and also math at the elementary level, which will definitely show an increase in our performance. These programs are top of the line, and they have been vetted by professionals, teachers, parents, professors, you name it, scientists, so it's just the highest quality curriculum materials that we're putting in front of our students, which is what they deserve, and for the teachers as well. We are also rewriting all of our curriculum at the secondary level, and we've started writing that at the elementary level as well to make sure that our curriculum is relevant and engaging for everybody. We also have aligned everything to the vision of a graduate to make sure that pre-K through 12, our students are ready for graduation, and that is interwoven in everything that we do this year and unites our vision across the district. Thank you. Did you want to say anything, Mrs. Cousineau? No? Okay.
I just want to celebrate all the hard work that is happening here in the Warwick schools. I have had a chance to go around to all the elementary schools a number of times. We're actually at Hoxie today celebrating with our cohort of principals, and we have Holloman on Thursday. We are doing some great work, and I know we'll see a change in scores as we move forward.
So we're going to move on to the number 3 slide, if we can, for the data wall collages. You don't have that? Okay.
I'm going to add a slide. Hold on. I'm going to make this work.
Just going to pause for a moment. Technical difficulties, everybody. Thank you. And while you do that, Mrs. Cousin, I'm just going to explain a little bit more about the data walls. And so, as I mentioned, we have asked each school to post data that goes along with their school goals. And so the principals, the teachers, and the leadership teams have worked together to create these goals, and they've been displayed very prominently in front of many of the schools. Almost every single school, in fact, except I don't have one here because they're still working on it at the Career and Technical Center, because they have different goals for each area of expertise that they teach the students. And so every school has something very important that they're working on, and so I think we have it up now on the next slide.
I might have to refresh. 15. Yep.
There it is. Perfect. Thank you for your patience, everybody. All right, now let Mrs. Cousineau speak about the first slides, which are the elementary level.
You open? Hold on. It opens.
Just click on that slide first. And then hover. Hover over downloads. Click. And then click.
There we go. All right. Thanks, everybody. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. Okay. So as Dr. Schultz said, we have data walls up in all of our elementary schools. Sometimes they are private in the teacher's room, such as Cedar Hill. They have a Post-it note system in place that they're using for their iReady scores, and they're tracking students' progress with iReady. iReady is the program that we use for our progress monitoring for both ELA and math throughout the year, a minimum of 3 times a year. Greenwood has taken a little bit of a different approach. Greenwood has some Rycast scores as well as some iReady scores, and the vision of the graduate. That's nice to see. The vision of the graduate is driving all of this. Again, as we just kind of continue to scroll down, Holloman chose iReady. As you can see, they have their beginning of year scores, and then they'll add to it as the year goes on with middle and end of year scores. Hoxie's doing something interesting. Hoxie is using some shoe prints, some footprints, and they are tracking their MyPath minutes. We would like students to go on MyPath for ELA and math, a minimum of 10 minutes a day for each content area. And the teachers have sort of a little friendly competition going on. So we have an updated version. We haven't added to the slide yet, but we have an updated version when we went to Hoxie today. So we got to see some of the shoes all the way over at 100%. And we're hoping that because of this, that their math fluency and their discourse in math is certainly going to go up as well, which will hopefully reflect in our Rycast scores. And again, I don't have to go through every single school here. We can have Mr. Cousineau slide through. There's Norwood's Wall. Oaken Beach is using a thermometer sort of technique, but again, it's looking at iReady. Park is using Mount Everest as kind of their guiding principle there, and they have different heights that they're trying to reach. Robertson is the Raptors, and they have these raptor footprints that they are tracking their minutes. Scott School has overall iReady scores, which kind of look a little bit like Rycast with the green, yellow, and red sections. Sherman got a little bit to a late start. As we know, Sherman at Gorton for a limited time only is now up and running. And so they also have the thermometers. Warwick Neck has some tracking of minutes as well. And Wyman has sort of this glow and grow, and they have sort of a flower or a plant theme. So each of the elementary schools sort of took it in their own way, and they kind of put their own spin on it to try to impress enough that how important it is to look at data, and then what do we do with the data. So I'll let Dr. Schultz talk about the middle schools and high schools, and then our next conversation will be about our extended day program.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Cousineau. And so if you look here, we have Windman Middle School and then Veterans Middle School, and they're tracking similar things at both middle schools. They have their iReady data, which shows how the students do at the beginning of the year, middle year, end of year, which then closely aligns to how they do on the state assessment. And they're also tracking attendance data, too, which is very important. And we are here at Veterans, and if people want to look outside of the auditorium, it's right outside, and so it's in a very prominent location when people walk in. Same thing at Windman when you first walk in. And then if we move to the high schools, we have Tollgate and Pilgrim also doing something similar. Tollgate has it on a screen so that students see it right near the main office. They're tracking STAR data, which is another type of diagnostic assessment. Same thing with Pilgrim. And so it shows you how the students are doing at the beginning of the year, and then they'll update it for the middle of the year, end of year. And the common theme through this is that there are goals attached to this. And so it's goal driven. So teachers know the goal, principals know the goal, students know the goal, and I really hope that parents know the goal. Parents, if you don't, then please ask and say, what is the goal? How did my student do on this test? What can I do to help? And we really want to see our students succeed as much as possible. And so one of the best ways we can do that is to make this data available to everybody and to make goals to increase how we did on our assessments. So thank you very much. Yes. No, we can just talk about it.
Yeah, we're only
Yep.
chatting. Yep. We're done with the slides.
Yep.
I think I pulled that up. I don't know how I remember.
Madam Chair, just before we go to the next agenda item, may I just,
What was that?
before we go to the next agenda item, may I just say something? Brief, I promise.
Sure.
Thank you. Dr. Schultz and Mrs. Cousineau, thank you very much. I don't have to tell you how
think so, too.
much data means to me. I'm excited that we're doing this. I'm excited that there's buy-in. This is nothing but good. And we start a course, we can change it, we can go left, we can go right, this isn't carved in stone. I have confidence in everybody here, the staff at all the schools. A little healthy competition is good. This isn't meant in any way, shape, or form to be punitive in any measure. It's really meant to be illustrative for everybody, parents included. I'm just wondering how we get the word out to parents. Parents are the toughest, ironically, parents are the toughest people to reach sometimes when it comes to things like this. But I want to thank you and everyone involved for all the work. It's very exciting for me.
Mr. Adams?
Thank you. So I only have one question in regards to the, it was the 2-day a week, the gaps in learning that you were taking the measures to do the before or after school hours. So at the secondary level, are we going for before school hours as well? Because like that's like I question the feasibility that students are going to want to get to school at like 6:20 in the morning.
I agree with you. Yes, I can hear Darlene laughing in the back. So I think it would be too early for them at that point. We're just asking teachers, what's easier for them, honestly. And so that's more feasible for elementary schools that have a later start, obviously. Most of the people that have applied for after school hours. I think it's just easier for most people. But yeah, I don't think that most students will want to come to school at 5:30 in the morning.
I don't think so either, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a question. You talked about sign-up. Have we had a very good turnout as far as sign-up so far?
So we're in phase 1 or 2 of this new extended day academy, and again, I can only speak to the elementary level. We are offering it 2 times a week for an hour each time, with an extra hour of planning on behalf of the teacher. The pods or the groups of students will run anywhere between 12 and 20 students, and we can mix pods as long as we stay masked and stay appropriate social distancing apart. Right now, we have had 22 teacher applicants, so we're going to accept all 22 of those teacher applicants. Some schools are more heavily weighed than other schools. We've had 8 schools respond so far, so an email went out today to the other 5 schools to try to boost some of those teachers to get on board with us. We have a meeting on Friday to look at our next steps, which would be to accept the teachers' proposals with a few tweaks. It's not about sitting in front of the computer and doing that iReady at that sort of tutoring or extended day session. It's about the data drives instruction and what are we going to do with that data. So we'd like to see a lot of hands-on things. We'd like to see that math discourse. We'd like to see maybe some projects that involve measurement and ELA, maybe start with reading a book and then doing the math activity that goes with the story in the book and so on and so forth. And most of the proposals that we've received have to do with a crossover between ELA, English Language Arts materials, using foundations, which we use in K and 1, as well as all things in math as well. So then we're going to inform the principals of the teachers that did sign up. And then our next step is how we're going to get the kids and the parents on board. So it is a work in progress, but we needed to roll it out. You got to go slow to go fast. So we thought, we put a lot on their plates this fall. And while we think and we hope we're getting back to normal, we know there's still nothing normal about this year at all. So hopefully we'll get some good responses in the next week or so.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your hard work. Look at this is important. Anyone? Okay, thank you very much. Excellent job. Okay, now on to 5, late buses. Ms. Machado.
Yes, I believe, Ms. Cobden, I believe you had a question about late buses.
Yeah, could you just explain the situation for late buses? Because there's a lot of confusion going out within the community as to if we're having them, if we're not, why we're not having them.
Sure, so at this moment, we're seeing a trend. My team and I did a time study on our buses, and we have for the past month, and we're seeing a trend of buses being late, too late to be the late buses. So they're dropping off the students past the late bus time that it would arrive to the secondary schools. So we would need 21 buses total for the schools that we provide late buses to. Talking to First Student, working with them on it and seeing, they've been combining a lot of buses with drivers being out for whatever reason, so that creates delays as well. We're hoping to start late buses after Christmas break, or after winter break rather, to start that way. I know that other districts I've looked into, they're starting them off at 1 day a week. I know that doesn't work with us in our department nights. I've also presented to or discussed with our superintendents about possible time change, but that obviously would affect teachers staying longer and payroll and all of those things. So we're working on it. We definitely want to offer it. We know it's very important for the students. So I'd like to say right now that we'd like to start the late buses after Christmas break. I think we'll be in a better place.
Okay, so basically, they don't have the capability, the bus company, of giving us the drivers because of the shortages.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
It has nothing to do with us not ordering them or anything like that?
No, it's just doing the time studies. They would end up being 15 to 25 minutes late to be the late bus, which doesn't work for that time frame. So we have some solutions. It just, it's a domino effect.
Right, so if they drop them off late and they're supposed to be back at the school, they're obviously not going to be there, which means
correct.
Everybody's going to be stuck at the school much later.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I thank you very much for explaining that.
Yeah, thank you for
It was
bringing
more
it
for
up.
the community to hear. There's been a lot of chatter about it and questions, and I just wanted to get a straightforward answer on it, so I know, what to tell people, and hopefully many are watching and can get the word out that that is what's going on, and we're trying our hardest.
Yeah, we are. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have one question for Ms. Machado.
Sure.
Just for clarification. The number of buses that we contracted for this year is adequate enough in a perfect world to have late buses.
Correct.
Right. And the issue, I think, to what the chair said is, this is the challenge that all bus companies are facing, right? It's a shortage of drivers, and that's the reason why. So it's not because we didn't contract for enough buses. There's enough resources there, enough buses there. They're just the drivers. Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was all combined. Thank you very much, Ms. Machado. I know you're working hard on all this. And I know we're not in the perfect world, especially with the bus driver situation. So I appreciate you continuing to try to make everything work. as normal as possible. Okay, the next item, discussion update, monthly fiscal report, and the requisitions approved, 500 to 4,999. Mr. McGrath.
Good evening, Ms. Cobden. I didn't know if we wanted to do 6 and 7 together. I kind of wrapped the fiscal report into the year-end projection, so I don't know if that works. But yeah, I'm here tonight to discuss the monthly fiscal report along with the year-end projection that I've put together. To start in my review of notes from last year's presentation, I noticed the district finds itself in a similar situation. Last year's November projection showed the district to have a deficit of approximately $5 million. That deficit was able to be closed using a combination of ESSER 2 funding along with transportation savings that we had throughout the year due to COVID. This year, in putting my projection together, I'm showing a $7 million deficit. Now, I know that sounds scary, but that is in large part to the $7 million of items that were budgeted to ESSER 3. In my projection, I have treated those items as expenses in the general fund because the ESSER 3 program is subject to RIDE approval, and I am anticipating that many of the items that were projected to be ESSER 3 will not qualify under guidance that we recently received from RIDE. One area I wanted to note is the large variance between salaries and the budget and the projection. The FY22 did have provisions for both unions having raises, but the agreements that were yielded a larger raise than what was budgeted in the 22 budget. This accounted for $2 million of the $4 million difference, and the remaining difference is directly tied to the ESSER 3 items that were budgeted. So that's all I have. I know there's questions, so I'll definitely address them.
Mr. Testa?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McGrath. So just to be clear, what you did was all those expenses that we anticipate being able to be covered with ESSER 3 funds, because we haven't gotten approval on the use of those funds for those expenditures, you're just rolling into the general operating budget, right?
Correct, yes. I have a spreadsheet that shows what was the ESSER 3 budget along with spent, and for sake of my projection, I treated those items, yes, as general funds. And then once we get approval on those, we'll break them out and pull them out of that general fund. But I wanted to present it as
right. And off the top of your head, if every ESSER 3 expense went through and was covered, how much of that was it, 7.2 or whatever it was? What would be the projected deficit? Assuming if you were making this presentation right now and you knew all ESSER 3 covered everything we wanted it to cover, where would we be?
In that scenario, all 7 would put us basically at a balanced budget. I don't anticipate the items that were included in that budget, I don't anticipate them to be, just working with Dr. Cecil, reviewing the documents, a lot of the items that were indicated aren't ESSERable. So I think we're going to end up having to shift some items around. I know additional salaries have been assigned for some learning loss, so there's a lot of work to do there, but that gap seems to be around $7 million.
Okay, because I think when we approved our budget whenever it was, we were pretty comfortable. We knew that the extra expenditures, the accelerated learning, the dealing with learning loss and all that would most likely be covered by ESSER funds. And we wanted to take steps to make sure we didn't use ESSER funds for recurring expenses because it just kills us later, right?
Correct, yes.
So, to my knowledge, I don't think we've done that yet, but hopefully we don't. Then you mentioned something about salaries are over budget by 4.2, and you alluded to the 2 CBAs. I thought the CBAs were paid for, so to speak, for the first year, right?
Yes, in reviewing of the fiscal impact that was put together, it indicated that there were pickups through arbitration and a couple other categories. I didn't take those into account yet because I didn't want to cut anything yet. I just wanted to present what I was kind of given. So that's something that we're going to work through and kind of see where that lands. Okay. But yes, there are areas that can be adjusted.
Okay, so I think your reasoning that you just put out there kind of applies to what I describe as a gift that keeps giving, which is the Vets Cafeteria project. So in this, you have it at about $900K.
Mm-hmm.
When that was presented to us, that was supposed to be partially paid for by offsets, right? I forget what the terminology was. So I don't know what those offsets were.
Yeah, I'm
right?
not
And I don't expect you to know. Hopefully, I think some of the work that Mr. Gothberg's done will take some of that out of the operating budget and into bond expenditures, okay? So,
Yes, I also wanted to, I think I indicated in the report that the use of the revolving fund to fund some of that,
Yep.
along with stage 1, stage 2, that's an option we have to kind of
okay.
pick up some.
And I think, believe it or not, that may be all I had. Yeah, and then the last item is a fund transfer to the lunch fund. Right, so that was $100,000 that we had to put into the lunch fund, right?
Well, yes, that's what's budgeted. Last year, it came in around $30,000. In the past, that was the $300,000 to $400,000 transfer that existed.
Okay.
I put it in as 100 because I'm not really sure how that's going to land, just because we've had such a big swing in it. But I don't anticipate a $300,000 or $400,000 like we had in the past.
So is it safe to say that you took a very, very cautious approach at this point?
Yes,
right?
yes, I would definitely.
And that's fine. I think that's the appropriate way. I think putting all that $7 million into general is a good idea, because if you didn't and a calamity happened, then we would be accused of being fast and loose with or playing too cute by half. So, okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to put it out there as what I had to work with, and then kind of pick it apart from here. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is discussion action, request for girls ice hockey co-op. Mr. Ricks.
Good evening, Madam Chair, the rest of the committee members. I come before you today to seek your approval with the Rhode Island Scholastic League to add another team to our current co-op, Warwick Public Schools co-op for girls ice hockey. That would be Charahoe. At this point, we've had discussions with Charahoe, and they're on board. It would benefit us in a number of ways. Our numbers right now, returning numbers were 8 and 8 from each school, which 4 and 2 were last year's freshman class. So looking long-term, I think it would serve us best and give us the best opportunity to maintain our program while also helping out the Charahoe kids. They have a few kids that are unable to play at this time because they don't have enough at their school.
I have just a quick question.
Okay, Mr. Testa, I do too.
So when these kinds of things happen, is it the best person that's on the team, or are there quotas? As much as I hate the word quota, but everybody would have to be represented, right? So, could you have a team with 2 Charahoe kids on it and everybody else is from Warwick, or is there a kind of ratio that you shoot for? I don't know how that works.
Well, yeah, there's a certain number, a guideline. Our interscholastically won't even entertain a thought of doing a co-op if we don't meet those guidelines. We currently meet those guidelines, so I don't see why they would reject them. Just so you know, when you do any type of co-op, which you may or may not know, but I'll reiterate that, kids don't get cut. Because we take on another team doesn't mean someone from one of our teams was not going to make the team now. So, and Charahoe, just so you also, Charahoe has offered to share the expenses, a percentage of what their athletes would make with our program and our expenses.
So if it allows a more competitive team to be fielded and more kids get to participate, that's a win-win. So I'd be fine with that. Thank you.
I just have a couple of questions.
Sure.
How many kids from Charahoe do you think we're getting?
Probably 3.
Okay,
I mean, we're
so it's a
hoping to
low
get a few
number.
more.
Right.
But,
Now, once we add them to our co-op, is this a year-to-year thing to be looked at in case we get more of abundance of kids in Warwick?
yes, it would be a 2-year agreement.
It's for
and then
2
they'd go
years.
to a phase-out period, correct.
And then they reevaluate?
Correct.
And you
If-
think for the next 2 years, it won't be a problem with our district?
No, and as I said, looking at we're big into data. I mean, anything could change with the dynamics
Right.
of who's playing hockey and who's not. But our younger numbers are low, so at this point, it definitely makes sense. Now, if we get a big increase or a bunch of kids, freshmen, come out this year and things change, we have to reapply every 2 years. They'll look at that
Okay.
data, and we may not meet the requirements.
Okay. And those kids are happy wearing a Warwick shirt, right?
Yeah, no, we discussed that too. They want to have a patch on
Stay
there.
with Warwick.
I
I'm not
gotcha.
voting for it.
I got you.
Thank you, Mr. Ricks. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the next one is a discussion action.
Ms. Cobden, we do have a couple of the Charo parents here tonight
Oh,
to offer their support.
hi, welcome. Welcome.
They're hoping for, they were willing to come forth if you had any questions on their end.
No, we're happy to have you, as long as you guys don't mind our Warwick shirts. Go Warwick. Thank you very much for coming. And we have no problem having you aboard, and we look forward to letting your kids enjoy themselves. It's a great sport. Thank you.
Thanks for coming down, fellas.
Thank you for coming. Okay, discussion action, number 9. It's again Mr. Ricks. It's contract award for athletics, the football helmet and shoulder pad reconditioning.
Hi, yes, Madam Chair. I come before you to seek approval to maintain the current bid. I forgot to put that on the sheet that I sent to you, but I'm basically looking to extend bid 19007 for the 21-22 school year. And that's basically, this is something for next year. When I first took over this part of the job, we would always send out our helmets for reconditioning after the Thanksgiving Day games, and they don't return till August. And when they return in August, it's, by the time they pick them up and return them, it's already too late to ask your permission for this expense. So I come to you a year in advance to let you know that we need to have these helmets reconditioned. It's a safety issue, and this company's been reliable for us for many years.
Motion to approve from someone?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, Mr. Ricks, for coming.
Thank you very much.
Okay, on to number 10, discussion action, contract award maintenance, walk behind scrubber, Mr. Oliver.
Good evening. I'm requesting your approval on this contract. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Madam Chair, I have a question not directed to Mr. Oliver about the scrubber. And it's probably directed to Mr. McGrath and Mr. McCaffrey. On a lot of the documents that we have here, many of them don't say if it's a budgeted expense or not. So, I mean, for me, I can't speak for my colleagues. I like to know what's budgeted and what's not budgeted. It just makes it easier to wrap my mind around where we're going. So, just for the next meeting, when we have these things, budget managers, if it's already been budgeted, just put in there that it's been budgeted, just so it makes it easier for us. So that's all.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Stops a lot of questions, too. Ms. Bogus?
Mr. Oliver, good evening. Do we already have do we have any walk-behind scrubbers?
Do we have more in the district? Yes, we do.
Exactly. What do we do with them?
We wash floors. It expedites the time to wash a floor, like a cafeteria. If we had to hand wash it, it would take about an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes. This knocks it down to about 20 minutes. It saves on injuries and manpower.
So do we have them at all our high schools and junior highs?
We have them in every building. We're trying to replace the ones that are aging and aging out of the system.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Comments? All in favor?
Aye. Yeah, it was already.
Okay. And the next one is also Mr. Oliver regarding the indoor bleacher maintenance contract award.
Yes, I'm requesting your approval on this contract. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions?
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Oliver. I know it's been a little bit crazy lately with that. Next item, discussion action, contract award, WACTC AC trainer, Ms. Machado, Mr. Kane.
Madam Chair, the Career and Tech Center is looking to purchase an AC trainer for the automotive program. It's grant funded. It's also provided by a sole source vendor.
Excellent. Any questions?
Move approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
very much. Discussion action, contract award technology, virtual VDI environment for high school Cad Labs.
That's me.
Okay, your name isn't next to it, so I'm like, okay, it sounds like you, but wasn't
Yep.
sure. Okay, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the school committee. This item, what we have before you, is a VDI environment for the Cad Labs. What that means is that, as we know, our students in secondary schools, both middle and high schools, connect to the CAD programs for their CAD classes through current servers. Those servers in the district are on-prem servers, and they do not work anymore. So the CAD students have had intermittent experience in those classes since the beginning of the year. After evaluating a number of different options, including replacing all of the servers, continuing to try to fix the servers that are broken, we decided on this option, which is to move to a virtual environment with an annual subscription, so the district is no longer managing those servers, fixing them if they break, and it will be the quickest to get the students back on board for the experience in their CAD programs. So I would respectfully request approval.
Second, I have one question for Dr. Taylor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Testa?
So this would become an annual expense that obviously we'd pay every year. In your cover page, you put on here that we would have to replace the servers and everything else. So what does that cost?
Sure, absolutely. So we explored a few different options. So the first option, which we've been working on, and I really do want to give some credit where credit's due, Matt Wetzel, who's our network admin from Wally, and our technicians have really been trying to work out the current servers to try to get them back operational. And so that was option one, to continue doing that. We could kind of send those servers out, which was option number two, for about $35,000, and there's no guarantee that they would ever work again. We did price out new servers. It's a series of 4 servers. With the cost of the servers as well as the installation, it was about a $200,000 expense for that program. So that's what made this option the most feasible. Although an annual subscription, no longer are we going to be worried about it not working or overheating or a drive dying in the server, and it will give our kids a consistent experience.
And is this, I would imagine that this is something most people are gravitating to now anyway, right? You're going to the cloud instead of maintaining your own servers and everything that accompanies that, right?
Absolutely, yes. Yep, most definitely. And we've been looking at pushing many of our things to the cloud. For another example unrelated to this, but a lot of our faculty and staff uses the Z Drive. We're trying to push that to the cloud through Google Drive. And same idea, because if those servers go down, then we lose all of that data. Or another risk, as we all hear about ransomware and malware attacks, if you have on-prem servers, you're exposed to those threats versus using servers, that are off-site in the cloud, that have the redundant backup.
Thank you very much.
All in favor?
I have a question.
Oh, you have a question. I'm sorry, Mr. Adams.
Yeah, no worries. My only question is, does this come with any kind of tech support as well? Because, when you're in a cloud-based environment, there is a chance that the cloud server, so to speak, goes down. Mm-hmm. And then you're in the same situation where you can't access it. So is there going to be a team or whoever of tech support that's going to be able to respond quickly when that happens?
Absolutely, yes, and kind of 2 layers to that. The first layer, as you mentioned, is through the service of which we're buying into the cloud, but also second, our managed service provider, Wally, our network admins, would also manage that, much like they manage the current VDI environment as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Taylor, Dr. Taylor. And you have the next mega item, so we'll just go to the next one, the contract award technology on document cameras.
Thank you, yes. So what we have before you on this item is another phased purchase of document cameras. We did just recently go out to bid and solicited new bids to ensure that we were getting the best pricing